Hello everybody, Heather the Bard here, and today I want to talk about a concept called chord theory, which is kind of the loose term used to discuss some music theory concepts in relationship to a fretted string instrument like the ukulele or guitar. So when you learn to play the ukulele, and if you've been playing for a while, you're pretty familiar with your basic beginner chords. And so, like this is the chord shape or the memorized pattern of where we put our fingers on the fretboard. This is the G chord shape to play a G chord, which is multiple notes that are played at the same time. Every chord has a name. Some of this I covered in one of my earlier videos on the ukulele. So that's the G chord shape. And we've memorized like the C chord shape or the D chord shape. So we have part of how we learn to play, especially if we're accompanying ourselves singing or accompanying somebody else singing, we learn all these different chord shapes in relation to the fretboard of the instrument. And more importantly, in relationship to this little piece, which is the top of the fretboard, also called the nut. So now, if you've done any accompanying, either of yourself or somebody else, you're probably familiar with this little jobby. This is what's called a capo. This is one of many, many different styles of capo. This one is made by Kaiser, which is one of the better companies out there, and it's made in the USA, which is kind of awesome. My personal recommendation. Kaiser capos. So what you do with this, basically what this does, is this moves the top of your fretboard, which would normally be up here, down. So you can sit there, and if you've memorized your G chord shape, or even let's just make it simpler and say, that's My Dog Has Fleas, and this is tuned G, C, E, A, just like any other ukulele. If you take your capo and you put it, say right there, then what this does is it makes the strings sound higher. But it doesn't change the relationship between the notes. So, for example, this still sounds like My Dog Has Fleas. What this is doing is this is moving the pitch of the strings up. So the further you put this capo closer to the body of your instrument, the higher the strings sound. But it doesn't change the relationship between the notes or the interval, which is the distance between one note and the next. So it maintains that same My Dog Has Fleas sound to it. Now, lots of times if you accompany somebody, you'll slap your capo on and then you'll still be playing your song in, say, the key of G, and you'll be using your G chord shapes, C, D, etc. But they're not your true G, D, or C, because by shortening the distance of the strings, making them sound higher pitched, because we learn these shapes in relation to the nut, that actually changes, by putting this on, that changes where the notes are. And so this becomes B instead. Now, you're probably sitting back going, okay, wait a minute, that happened a little fast for me. So let me slow it down a little bit more. So basically, we'll take this off. This is your starting point. If you're familiar with basic music theory, or if you've seen a piano, there's middle C on the piano. And then all the notes of Western music are organized on a whole step and half step system. So that means all the distance between one white key and the next white key is a whole step. and the distance between a white key and a black key is a half step. There's a couple exceptions to this, but I'm simplifying for the sake of keeping the video in a timely fashion. Now, how that translates to this is, by and large, each time you have a fret, that's considered a half step. So if you learn your G here, you move it up a little bit, that becomes G sharp. There's A sharp or B flat, and there's B. Okay. So this is how we start to figure out things like playing bar chords. So if you start, and this is the shape where you bar here and then you put your finger on this 4th fret. This is the chord shape on the ukulele for B minor. If you move it up, that becomes C minor. Move it up again, C sharp minor, D minor. And this kind of gets into what's called chord voicing, which is which notes are the low notes, which notes are the high notes, but the same combination of notes creates the same chord. They just have a little bit different feel to them. And this is really handy if you are composing, or if you're wanting to do a fresh take on an older song and you want to change up some of the voicings on the written chords to kind of give it a little bit different feel. So that's kind of one concept of this. The other is that if you don't have a handy little capo, you can take, say, I'm just going to, for the sake of cool stuff, use your G chord shape. And you see where this nut is? If you start learning how to play bar chords, your bar finger can replace that nut. So, for example, if I wanted to move this G chord to A, I would put the bar there, and then I would place my fingers like so. And that would create A, because my finger just functioned as a capo. So that's probably enough for today. I'll do another video on this that kind of gets into a little more detail with how you can adjust chord shapes to play different voicings of chords and move them down the fretboard. Also how to transpose music so that you can figure out change between different keys in music a lot easier. And so I'll do a part 2 to this, but there's just a few concepts to get your feet wet, how to use your capo, what chords are, how they function. And other than that, I'm Heather the Bard. If you have questions, please drop them for me in the comments. Hit me up on my Facebook group, the Bard's Ukulele Study Group. And you can drop them in the comments on Steemit, where this will also be posted. And other than that, happy playing. And I hope that cleared some things up. Have a great day.